thought that millions of Mexican farm workers could be replaced by high school athletes. So for like 20 years, from around World War II, 1940s, through 1964, the US government had been actively recruiting Mexican men, allowing them and encouraging them to come across the border to engage in farm work, agricultural labor all across the American Southwest, because the US government needed laborers to do that. First, during World War II, when so many of its men were off fighting, and then they just thought, you know what, they're doing the work for a lot cheaper and a lot worse conditions, so we're just going to allow this to keep happening. This was called the Bracero program. But the program ended, and so in 1965, all of a sudden the Secretary of Labor is like, ooh, we're going to need people that are willing to do this work. And so they look around and they think, high school teenagers, let's try that. They create a project called the A-Team, Athletes in Temporary Employment as Agricultural Manpower. And they basically prey upon young, athletic, high school dudes to be like, hey, come pick grapes for the summer. It's going to build character. Farm work builds men. You can do it. You're strong. Over 18,000 teenagers signed up for the program. Only about 3,000 of them ever actually made it to a farm to do work, and it was a disaster. Now, they were paid minimum wage plus like an additional bonus for however many things they picked, depending on what crop they were focusing on. But they were like housed by the government in basically defunct housing. They were given essentially military rations. They weren't allowed to return home during the summer program. And like over 200 of them just actively quit within the first 2 weeks. Students immediately started staging strikes because they were like, these working conditions are so terrible and we're literally broke. Like, we can't live off of these wages even though they're being paid the federal minimum wage. Like, the whole program fell apart. One of the men who was involved in this program, Randy Carter, reflected pretty recently saying, quote, "There's nothing you can say to us that migrant laborers are, or they're lazy. We know the work they do, and they do it all their lives, not just one summer for a couple of months, and they raise their families on it. Anyone ever talks bad on them, I always think, keep talking, buddy, because I know what the real deal is."